When you have lemons, make lemonade. I'm Joseph, this is Input English. As you can see, I'm in the studio, and you might deduce that there's a reason for that. The reason is simple. It's raining cats and dogs outside. The Input English channel is dedicated to providing comprehensible input to people who would like to improve their English listening comprehension and their speaking ability. Comprehensible input is the best way to acquire the English language. It is also the best way to improve the English that you already have. If you can understand what I am saying, you are not a beginner. You are at the intermediate or perhaps advanced level of English learning. Let's celebrate that and then provide you with good input so that you can make additional progress. I started out with an expression, if you have lemons, make lemonade. That's a common saying in American English, and it means make the best of what you have. If you've watched videos on this channel before, you probably know that I don't complain about the weather. The weather is a fact of life. It happens all the time, and our best approach to the weather is to adapt to it. Accept it. We can't change it. We can accept it, and then we can adapt our behavior to take good advantage of the weather. That's what I'm doing today. I really enjoy making videos out in that park. It's a very enjoyable process, and it's a very pleasant area in which to work. During the winter, I make a lot of videos in the studio, like today, because the conditions outdoors are not conducive to making videos. Right now, it is cold, raining, and it's very windy. So let's take this opportunity to talk about the weather. In a recent video, I talked about the seasons and how the seasons change in different parts of the country and what people can expect based on season change. Weather changes are more short-lived than seasonal changes. So since it is raining right now, let's talk about rain. Rain is water. We also call it precipitation. Precipitation is any form of water that falls out of the sky. So precipitation could include rain, sleet, snow, or hail. Those are all forms of precipitation. Today, our precipitation is entirely in the form of rain. Talking about the weather in English is a common activity. Sometimes people talk about the weather because the weather impacts their plans and what they would be able to do. Other times people use talking about the weather as an icebreaker. If you don't know someone well, but you'd like to strike up a conversation, it would be unwise to start that conversation with a very controversial topic. Instead, people frequently talk about the weather. Most of us consider talking about the weather a very safe topic to discuss with people we don't know very well. In order to talk about the weather, there are a lot of terms that you will hear that may sound unfamiliar because they are idioms or metaphors. So let's go through a few of those terms so that you will be very familiar with them. The terms that we use for rain vary with the intensity of the rain. If the rain is very severe, people might just say, it's raining very hard. Or they might get a little more colorful in their language and say that it is raining cats and dogs. Heavy rain is frequently referred to as a downpour. We get a picture of that pouring water in a location. You see that pouring of rain. And in fact, people use the word pouring to describe heavy rain. They may say downpour, or they may just say that it really poured rain on us. If someone wants to get more colorful yet in their description of heavy rain, they may call it torrential rain. The word torrential refers to rain coming down in a torrent, that is a big flow of rain, heavy rain. Heavy rain could be called a deluge. And one of my favorites is a cloudburst. Again, it's a metaphor. The picture one gets is that the cloud opened up and just dumped a lot of water in a specific location, a cloudburst. Other terms will be encountered. If the rain is light, it might be referred to as a light rain. If it is very light, it might be referred to as mist or a spitting rain. So as you can see, there are lots of ways to describe various types of rainfall. There are some fun descriptive terms for heavy rain, including a gully washer. A gully is a furrow in the ground made by a very small stream that develops with heavy rainfall. If the rain is a gully washer, it is heavy enough rain that gullies form or gullies fill up with flowing water. We also might say a soaking rain. That gives you a very specific picture of constant rainfall over a long period of time, saturating the ground. We would call that a soaking rain. Some people refer to heavy rains as a monsoon rain. Now, monsoon is a word that was brought into English. It was not originally an English term at all. It came from Arabic, and in the late 16th century, when ship travel was developing extensively around the world, different cultures and different populations came into contact with each other. So a lot of words were exchanged and languages grew because of these new words that were introduced. As I understand it, the Arabic word was picked up by the Portuguese and then the Dutch, and it wound up in English. Monsoon did not start out as a word in English, but we use it. In its purest form, it refers to a seasonal change in wind direction that usually heralds a change in the pattern of precipitation. That is, when the monsoon season develops, that area might become very, very dry or might become very, very wet. It is common for people to connect rain and monsoon because it is a common pattern that when the monsoon season comes in, a lot of rain comes with it. In the United States, people sometimes use the term monsoon rain to refer to very heavy and seasonal rains. Another term that I picked up in aviation, but a term which is used in common language, is a wall of water. That is a situation where you look at heavy clouds and rain in a storm that approximates a barrier made up of water falling out of the sky. As a pilot, I did not want to encounter a wall of water in front of me. That can be very dangerous. We covered the idiom that refers to heavy rain as raining cats and dogs. We can say that the rain is coming down in sheets. We can say that it's pouring. We might even say that it's raining like crazy. So you can see there are a lot of fairly colorful ways of talking about heavy rain in particular. In the United States, the different regions in the country tend to have their own characteristic patterns of rainfall. Along the East Coast and the Appalachian area, rain is common and annual rainfall is significant. That results in fairly lush growth of vegetation in that part of the country. In contrast, the desert Southwest, particularly Arizona, Nevada, and Utah, is very arid. The deserts of those three states frequently receive fewer than 10 inches of rain in a year. Those are very dry conditions. The area of the United States that we typically would associate with the highest rainfall would either be Hawaii, if you want to include all 50 states, or if you wanted to just talk about the continental United States, you would mention the Quinault temperate rainforest on the Olympic Peninsula. That rainforest in Washington state frequently receives more than 150 inches of rain each year. While we're on the subject of that rainforest, I should point out that it is a lovely place to visit, and it's a great time to introduce a concept about weather that I've mentioned before in videos. There is a German saying that translates into English, there is no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. The Quinault rainforest on the Olympic Peninsula is a great example of that axiom. If you visit that area, it is a wonderful opportunity to take a long nature walk through a beautiful, lush, green forest. This forest is so lush because of the very high level of rain it receives. However, since it rains nearly all the time there, it is wise to have proper rain gear. If you find yourself in the Seattle area in Washington state, a trip to the Quinault temperate rainforest is a wonderful day trip. We made that trip a number of years ago when my kids were very small. The four of us drove there and we equipped ourselves with proper raincoats. When we stepped out of the car, we were ready for anything. Thunderstorms are not common there, it's just usually raining. We stepped out of the car, it was raining, we were dressed in our rain gear, and we had a very long, beautiful nature walk in that rainforest. The same type of preparation is called for in arid locations, but instead of bringing rain gear, one needs to bring sunscreen, a hat, and lots of water. Geographical structures can very much affect rainfall. We have a lot of mountain ranges in the United States, and when the prevailing wind brings an air mass that is very moist to that location, that air mass rises. It is driven upslope by the prevailing wind, but as that air mass, with all its moisture, cools, it becomes saturated and rain develops. So if you understand that pattern of rain developing on the windward side of a mountain range, you would expect that the windward side would be very moist, and then perhaps the leeward side or the leeward side of that mountain would be a desert. And that's exactly what you see in the United States. The western Sierra are very lush because of high rainfall, but east of the Sierra Nevada mountains, you see a very large desert because the mountains extract the moisture from the air masses as they come through. Anytime there is high rainfall, there is some risk of flooding. The flooding might be very local, or it could be widespread. In many parts of the country, The rivers are equipped with dams and reservoirs, so there is a place for that water to go and be captured behind the dam. For that to work well, the operators of the dam need to anticipate rainfall and be prepared for it. They need to be prepared to release water so that the capacity of the reservoir is not exceeded. Some rivers in the United States are not equipped with dams. The water just flows freely from the top of the collection area, the hills and mountains, down through the canyons, along creeks, into rivers, and then bigger rivers. That process usually goes well, but occasionally there is a problem. Sometimes, if there is a lot of debris and brush in those riverbeds, a lot of water coming down from a huge rainstorm will wash all that debris downstream. That won't be a big problem until that brush encounters an obstacle. The foreseeable obstacle that could stop the flow of that debris in the water is a low bridge. This happened near where we lived in the Central Valley of California outside of Sacramento many years ago. We had a huge rainstorm. A lot of brush and branches were washed downstream, and a lot of bridges were very low. So that brush was caught by the bridge, and it formed a local random obstruction. And then behind that obstacle, the water piled up. The water collected. Basically, the brush created a false dam, and that resulted in flooding. That can also result in damage to the bridge. The bridges are not intended to function as a dam. Massive flooding due to river conditions are fairly uncommon in California. We do see them from time to time. What is more common is local flooding, flooding of low sections of road, or flooding of long sections of road because of very high runoff, which creates standing water on the road. These local flooding conditions can be a real hazard for drivers. We have been taught by local authorities that if there is standing water on the road, it is unwise to try to drive through it because you may not know how deep it is. You don't want to drive into a flooded roadway and submerge your car because you were wrong about how deep it is. When driving at highway speeds, flooding of the roadway, that is standing water on the roadway, can cause a condition called hydroplaning. This doesn't occur at low speeds, only at highway speeds. If someone is driving a car 50 or 60 miles an hour, standing water on the road can create a layer of water between the tire and the roadway. This can result in the driver losing control of the car and having an accident. We see this phenomenon where we live. We live in the mountains, and there are a lot of curves. If there's very heavy rain, standing water on the roadway is foreseeable, and it is fairly common for us to see cars lose control and crash because of hydroplaning. Pickup trucks appear to be very susceptible to this. In addition to putting us in danger and endangering our car, heavy rains can damage the roads as well. In our area, it is fairly common for heavy rains to undermine the roadway. That is, the runoff water washes away the dirt and gravel under the roadway. When that segment of the road loses its support, it collapses. The local term that we use for that is a slip out. It's usually partial rather than the entire roadway slipping away. but it can be complete. Slip-outs in our area usually are the result of cumulative rainfall and runoff. A slip-out is usually not the result of a single rainstorm. When one of these slip-outs occurs, the authorities block it off and put up appropriate signs so that people know that they have to drive around this partially destroyed segment of road. Sometimes they have stop signs so that people will make sure that the roadway is clear because there's really only one lane available at a slip-out. When a slip-out occurs, it is studied by the Department of Transportation, and then repairs are instituted. Those repairs are usually done months later. When rainfall occurs, the driver of an automobile or a vehicle is going to turn on the windshield wipers. That is, a switch will be actuated, and then the windshield wipers will start to function. In modern vehicles, windshield wipers usually have different speeds. They may have an intermittent mode so that the windshield wiper only crosses the windshield every now and then, or one could set it for a slow wiper speed, or you could set it for a very high wiper speed. If the rate of rainfall is super high, the rainfall may exceed the ability of the windshield wipers to maintain the driver's visibility. That is not common in this area. However, on the East Coast of the United States, it is very common. I can remember driving in Central Florida years ago on a large highway, and the rainfall was so severe that it was not safe to continue driving. It was not possible to see well enough to maintain the car on the road. This puts the driver in a very precarious position. If one pulls off the highway and stops, it is possible that an oncoming car from behind will impact your car. Automobile accidents are foreseeable in these conditions. However, if you choose to not pull over and you can't see the car in front of you, you may be the one who drives your car into someone else's. It's a precarious situation to be in. It's frightening. And I have seen on a number of occasions in that area that people choose to pull over and wait for that rain to slack off so that they can continue on their journey. There is a time in aviation that aircraft are very susceptible to heavy rain conditions, and that is when they're landing. If there is standing water on the runway, that can tremendously change the aircraft's ability to maintain control and to stop within the available distance. If one lands an aircraft with a lot of standing water on the runway, it is possible that it will be impossible to stop in time and the aircraft will run off the end of the runway before it stops. This is one of the reasons that pilots need to be very savvy when it comes to weather. They need to be able to anticipate problems and prevent accidents before they occur. So today, it's raining cats and dogs here. We have accepted this as a fact of life, and then we have made the best of it by using it as an opportunity to talk about these extreme weather conditions. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please hit that free subscribe button. It makes a big difference. And if you like videos like this, be sure to click on this one next. See you soon.